All right, I think we're here. Good morning, evening, wherever you guys are coming from. Welcome to Contentstack Pulse. We are thrilled to have you join us as we look back at all the amazing things that we have done in 2023. I'm Nicole Quick, Senior Manager of Platform Marketing at Contentstack, and today with me is our none other John Kelly, Director of Product. Welcome, John.
Hello, world.
Again. Today we're going to dive into all the amazing things that we have done this past year and maybe have a sneak peek of what we're going to talk about in 2024. So are we ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's get going.
All right, let's kick it off with our headless CMS. Can you give us a brief overview of what our core platform does and then what features that excited you the most this year?
Yeah, let's dive right in. So I'm just gonna share my screen and make sure I do that the right way here. And we're gonna take a look at just kind of a few interesting features we worked on over the past year with our core platform flagship feature, Headless CMS. Kind of starting off, I wanted to talk about our updated look and feel. So, we have our Venus design system. It's basically been the sort of underpinning on our user experience and our user interface for the past few years. Of course, it is also available as React components within our Storybook UI library. So a really nice way for an ergonomic place for developers to come in, build applications and bespoke functionality on top of the Contentstack platform directly for their authors. But just kind of poking around a little bit, it's kind of wanted to showcase a little bit of the updated look and feel. So we're now on technically the 2.0 version for all of our Venus components. That is updated iconography, some updated UI elements, just kind of overall better, more refined experience, including some actually really interesting search features. And so, looking at some features around basically searching by titles, the ability to kind of do some better boosting around rankings for keywords within a stack, as well as the ability to support search for our updated taxonomy feature, which we'll talk about here in just a few minutes.
Awesome. Exciting stuff. Yeah, let's see what else we can do with that taxonomy.
Cool. So I want to introduce the concept of taxonomy to the world. So basically, when we look at, large content projects, the kind that our customers, who are some of the largest businesses on earth, are creating using Contentstack, we come to recognize that, of course, applications and websites are built hierarchically. However, most of the content projects organized in a headless CMS are organized in sort of a flat document structure. And we have to kind of create constructs that are kind of bespoke to ourselves in order to help kind of organize and manage some of that stuff. So we decided we needed to take that concept up a level, and we built what we would consider to be like a tentpole feature called Taxonomy, which is basically a way to generate lists of terms, and of course the ability to nest terms within terms as well, that effectively represent sort of the overall directory structure, hierarchical structure, could even represent things like sitemaps and information architecture for your applications, and really just allowing you to kind of organize all of your content in a way that is most suitable and kind of makes sense for you. Notably, we do provide the ability for, of course, tagging content with taxonomy terms, as well as visualizing content with taxonomy terms. And so if we pop into an actual entry, we can see in this particular blog post, I did tag this with a taxonomy term of food. I can also continue to tag it since I've assigned a particular list of terms to this entry. Tag it with whatever I want, and then basically I'll be able to go ahead and search for that within our entry list page, filter for it, as well as basically query by it. So if I search for food or filter by food, you'll notice it's actually added to our search bar as well. And on the content delivery side, when I publish that entry, I'm able to actually query by taxonomy term using the CDA. That's actually really important because now the developer experience is elevated to a point where behind the scenes, of course, all sorts of filtering and all sorts of categorizing and recategorizing could be happening with your marketing teams. But on the development side, then you're able to basically set up your applications to do queries according to this very structured, again, like tentpole type of structure, where basically you don't have to be making a lot of development updates and app updates to basically figure out and adjust your queries over time. The application will just return all the content that is relevant for that particular query. So that could be lists of entries and pages under a given category. It could be actually even creating a net new category, or of course, just moving things around your application. So really nice way to just sort of holistically manage and maintain, and then of course query for content within your CMS.
So this feature just came out a couple months ago. And so if you're a customer today, this will be something that you can implement now?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So we are, I believe it's about ready to, it's been rolled out incrementally to the majority of our customers. That'll be finished up here very shortly.
Awesome. What else do we have?
Yeah, so I want to talk about sort of the elephant in the room from 2023, I guess, which is, of course, artificial intelligence. It's an area that we've been doubling down on, ever since the advent of large language models. And basically, we're sort of at the forefront of some of that work. Actually, we were a sort of launch partner with the Amazon Bedrock platform. We've been able to integrate with models from OpenAI's GPT models, as well as some of the Google models. Hugging Face models, Anthropic, and a few others that are out there as well. So we do a lot of research in this area. One thing I do want to show actually is our AI assistant. So I'll kind of start actually in the sort of configuration for the AI assistant. So we pop down to our marketplace because it's kind of important to show people how to actually access this. So our marketplace is basically the app store for functionality within Contentstack. So you have basically applications, you have starters, which are effectively websites and applications in a box. We have content models, which we'll actually come to later. We have automation recipes, and of course, guides for doing things like translations, et cetera. But I'm going to go into our applications folder or catalog, pop open the AI assistant, and I'm actually going to go ahead and go over to the configuration for the stack that we were just looking at because it's already installed there. Notably, what I wanted to basically show is one, the configuration for this. So we do provide the ability for our customers to just utilize the terms and conditions that we have with Azure's deployment of GPT-4. So basically, it's the most business-friendly as well as the most powerful implementation of the GPT model, which is one of the best models out there. Alternatively, customers can add their own custom credentials for any service they choose, and we'll simply pass those queries directly to that LLM. That's important because customers do need to feel like their data is being secured and private and is sort of useful just to them, and we're fully on board to support that. So when we have our advanced configuration, this is actually where it gets kind of cool because we do have some default actions and models and basically prompts that we can that we provide for our end users. We do have the ability to create custom prompts as well. So in this case, I actually created one sort of previously. It says sounds like Nicole, and of course, if I were to go ahead and invoke this, it would basically say write whatever I'm trying to write in the voice of a brilliant, enthusiastic marketing professional. So in this case, I'm adding a sub condition here for the selected option of persuade to help try to persuade someone to do something. And of course, it's going to be performed on the current fields, and I'm able to basically showcase or populate this on any other field within where the AI assistant is available. So of course, I can create more than these, but I'm just going to go ahead and leave that as is, save and proceed. And basically, we're just going to go pop back to our CMS, and I'll kind of show you that in action. So we're just going to go find another sort of miscellaneous blog post here. And if I scroll down, and I'm just going to go ahead and say, you know what, I don't like this summary. I'm going to go ahead and have Nicole rewrite this. So when we open our AI assistant here, of course, you can see we have a handful of just kind of default actions, some of the ones that we include out of the box, things like creating SEO tags, writing a blog post, helping to outline some stuff, replacing content that's optimized for tone, length, translations, which actually translations for the audience's purpose are stellar using the GPT-4 model. So if you're looking for very low cost, and by low cost, I mean free currently, if you already have a Contentstack subscription, way to do translations, you can definitely use the AI assistant for that, and it is almost flawless. And then of course, I have custom actions. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and get Nicole to help kind of persuade folks to go check out. Oh, let's see, what did I do for that? I'm actually going to go ahead and keep that content there, and now I'll rewrite it. There we go. So it's going to go ahead and just basically take what I was already written there, which was kind of boring, written by me earlier, and basically rewrite it in a way that Nicole would write, which is as a brilliant marketing professional, and a little bit lengthier, of course, not too long-winded, but basically a way to kind of help people get really jazzed up and excited for visiting Antarctica in April. Not really sure why you want to do that, Nicole, but you can hopefully that'll help you convince people that it's a good idea.
Me either. I'll take where I am today with a brisk 65-degree weather, but we do have some questions about taxonomy.
Sure.
One question that we have is, we actually have two questions, so we can go back or we can go ahead and jump into those. John, up to you.
Yeah, let's take them as they come.
All right. The first question is, can you allow just a subset of taxonomy terms for a specific content type? And I think you can see the question on the screen.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's a really good question. And absolutely. And I think I didn't show that directly, but if we go to, I think I was on this blog, detail pages, we can see in our content model, we do have basically a taxonomy field called category. And basically I've filtered it according to the taxonomy of categories. These are all the taxonomies that I've created previously. When I create add the taxonomy of categories, now my authors get to choose all the lists from that taxonomy. Further refined, kind of more granular permissions on certain terms will be coming. But right now, basically, you get to choose any of the lists that are available within your taxonomies module, add those to your content type, and then basically the authors who have access to that content type, and especially that field, will be able to basically choose those terms, which will then make those add that content to that entry. Importantly, I guess as a note for future reference, along with the availability of selecting only certain terms within a taxonomy, it will come with the ability to basically stratify access to entries according to taxonomy. So that basically ensures that basically you can use taxonomies to help define permissions on entries. One of the challenges today is actually where if you do want to, let's say you have a large content project, application or website, and you have people who are of a very similar type of role, a very similar type of job, but have access to different portions of the site, you would have to basically clone the content model and clone the role associated to that content type as well. Utilizing taxonomy, you'll be able to basically have an extra dimension there to sort of just take a cross section of the content in that content model and assign it to a role, almost akin to like a team or a group within that content type. So that will be coming actually just in a couple of months here. But basically our initial release was the ability to do mostly just as an introduction to the concept of taxonomy, a very highly structured way of organizing your content, and of course querying by it as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that, John. We have a couple hot topics about taxonomy. The next question is, how about localization in taxonomy? Do we support various locales?
Yep, also a good question. So we will be providing the ability to localize the terms directly. So those will then be associated with a locale. So when you basically create a localized version of an entry, you'd be able to have an associated localized version of the taxonomy, maintaining basically the reference back up to the main or master locale as well. Today, they are, of course, able to be individually tagged per entry, so per locale, per localized entry, but it is still referencing that sort of language agnostic list. And so we will be writing the concept of localization into those lists of terms as well.
Awesome. A couple more. How about how many levels deep can we have in a taxonomy?
Yeah, good question. We support, I think it's around 7 or 8, but I think maybe we'll do some research in the background and I'll make sure to get that added to our sort of Q&A maybe after this session. I want to make sure I get that right. But it is a pretty deep level of nesting, matching or exceeding some of like the nested references levels that we support today.
Awesome. And then for the last of taxonomy, can we use taxonomy for assets?
Yes. So basically those taxonomy fields, right now the asset sort of schemas are set with titles, descriptions, and tags. When we're looking at this year of basically creating the ability to write custom schemas into the asset manager itself, very similar conceptually to like content models for entries, that will then of course include basically a taxonomy field, just like you're seeing here for entries with the asset manager itself. So the schemas for assets are still static today, but will be made increasingly more dynamic over time. The idea here is that basically taxonomy as a concept and as a module, kind of like I said early on, will be kind of this tentpole feature where essentially every module in the CMS. Ultimately, we'll be able to roll up into this defined sort of structured list of terms or dictionaries or glossary, however you kind of define it. It's basically like a vocabulary for your project. And every other module in the CMS will sort of adhere to that taxonomy, even things like the URL field in a content type. So the ability to, for example, automatically generate the URL path depending on where in your directory that particular entry actually happens to sit.
Awesome. We appreciate the questions too, so keep them coming. As we move on, we have one question about our AI assistant.
Sure.
It says, could I write a script or code to crawl through, use the AI to do some translations?
Absolutely. So the way that, and I think we'll probably come to this with the Automation Hub demo we're going to kind of go through earlier, but, and I didn't realize I didn't actually save this, but I do want to go through just one more time and kind of give a quick, it takes about 10-second demo to walk through all of the various options you have for our current AI assistant. Of course, our custom actions to take what I wrote, which is nice and boring, and have Nicole's voice basically rewrite it for me. I'm just going to go ahead and make sure I actually accept this and then save the entry so it's saved here. And there's a couple different ways you could achieve that. So of course we do have, with our automation product, webhook executions on workflow stage changes or on various events like on save or on publish. And so within our automations product, and we'll look at that here shortly, we do have native connectors with some of the popular large language models, specifically like the Azure's GPT-4. And working with that, we have a lot of customers and, of course, some demos internally of a lot of sales engineers doing this, basically having, passing content directly to, like in the base locale, directly to the Automation Hub, which will pass it over to any large language model you choose, and then basically do translations according to n numbers of locales you might have in your stack. So right now I have, a half dozen or so, and this one, basically, the automation would run more on every new, in this case, English entry. It would basically go through, iterate, and basically loop through using our looping functionality to do a translation per locale, and then post those back to the CMS, save them, and optionally, you could even update the workflow stage to have someone sort of manually just kind of give it a double check there.
Awesome. I think we have one more feature that you want to cover for the CMS.
Yeah, definitely. Let's just pop open. And this has been around for a little while. I'm actually going to make my screen a little bit bigger here. Hopefully it's not too then small on everyone's screens externally. But basically it's our live preview feature. So it's been around for some time. Notably, we did just release a standalone preview service. And actually I'm just going to pop around a little bit so I can just kind of show where you would find that under tokens. So of course we do have our management and delivery tokens. Under delivery token, we do have the new ability. So in addition to, of course, scoping the tokens by branch as well as environment, we do have the ability to create a preview token. The kind of benefit of that is it does kind of help to keep your draft data a bit more secure than it was previously, as it did fundamentally, even though everything was still within the web app of Contentstack. But in the cases of customers creating like client-side rendered applications, there was a possibility of like a management token being out in the wild. So created a preview service to basically access draft content using the delivery API. So that's just a nice way to sort of maintain all that draft content as really secure just to and scoped to the preview service itself. And then of course it will ultimately help with subsequent development of things we're working on this year to really just kind of truly unlock a much more immersive canvas around previewing and collaboration with sort of the visual layer of Contentstack. But if we kind of pop open and just as a sort of refresher around live preview, we do support kind of every major data type in Contentstack today. So for example, let me just kind of pop down to our modular blocks and we can see, actually, no, I'm going to go to our homepage. This will be a better way to show all the different features here. So the homepage for this site, it's basically an apparel site. And of course, we do support things like basic text and images. We also support our modular blocks as well as references as well. So in this case, I have a series of blocks. There contains a bunch of different fields with some images. If I go ahead and just rearrange this block, I'm going to drag this here to the top, and you'll see that just below the top, where the block actually starts below the header, we do now have a net new module that was moved. This sort of up to 50% off last season is now in that first slot after the header. And if I wanted to go ahead and change that, I'll just go ahead and say 60% off last season, and we can see here updated live. Additionally, if I want to rearrange the imagery, I can go ahead and do that as well. So we support text, images, references, and block-based previewing directly here in our live preview service. Notably, we also support the REST endpoint as well as the GraphQL endpoint as well with the new preview token.
That's pretty awesome stuff. Makes it much easier to see what you're doing as well. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's all we have for our CMS. So we can jump right in and talk about our marketplace and how our apps are supporting. And then we'll jump into some questions.
Yeah, sounds good. Please do just interrupt anytime there is one. But I'm just going to go ahead and sure, I'll save this. Why not? And we'll pop over to our marketplace. And the first thing I wanted to talk about today was basically our content model templates. So I introduced the concept just a few minutes ago around the different sort of categories of the marketplace catalog. Of course, we have our apps, our starters, automations and guides, but actually content models is a new category for us. And so the benefit here is it basically allows customers to, and mostly developers, to kind of bootstrap their way into some of the content modeling best practices by us kind of providing really pristine examples of content models for different types of use cases and for different types of applications within really common structures on a website or application. Things like, writing an About Us page or a blog landing page or a product listing page, footers, banners, etc. So, if I pop open any one of these, I do have the ability to then kind of introspect the schema. So it kind of shows exactly kind of what's involved here, as well as gives you kind of a overview of it. And if I click import, I am taken directly to our starter wizard, which basically allows me to then import this model into any stack that I choose. So I don't necessarily need to throw it anywhere, but I'll just go ahead and add it to the Manta demo I was just looking at. And it'll go ahead and drop that directly into my existing content type. And I can just go ahead and basically, map this to either existing or, create new fields from this as well. But I'm just going to go ahead and pop back here so we don't have to bore the audience with too much of that mapping. But it is a really nice little addition to the content modeling experience, and as a way to really quickly and in a really productive manner kind of bootstrap your way into some best practices around content modeling in a structured data or structured content way.
That's cool. Really cool. And then once you get the structured content from the content model, you can use a live preview service to see what you're changing around. Is that how that would work in layman's terms?
Yeah, exactly. So then we kind of loop back around, and I'll just kind of pop up over to another tab here where I have another interesting, although I'll show it in the marketplace first. And if I pop back to our apps, actually I'll just search for it, is our release preview application. So we do have an app in the marketplace called Release Preview. It is leveraging behind the scenes, and we'll continue to kind of bake these together with our live preview service using the new preview token and functionality. The ability to basically take the concept of releases. Releases for us is a core module. It's basically a way to bundle up entries and assets for publishing, or importantly, also for unpublishing of very specific versions, and deploy that in bulk on a particular date, or of course ad hoc, like on demand if you want to do it right then. And we'll kind of walk through that in a minute. But it's important to note that Release Preview for us is really a notable application, because the app itself does have a nice little algorithm built in that basically computes all the changes from basically today's date to the date that release is targeted to go live, including changes that aren't even necessarily on that release's schedule. So it basically understands that, okay, if there are other releases between today's date and next Thursday, it's going to go ahead and actually compute those changes. And so your application itself actually ends up looking exactly like it will look, incorporating all those changes from today through that release date along the way. So it won't actually miss anything as you're doing that. So really nice little application. Definitely encourage people to check it out. And let's go ahead and just take a look at it. So I've got it on this additional this production instance. It's just a slightly different instance from what we were looking at earlier. And if we go to, let's see, let's just do a, I think I already have a release already lined up here. I do. So basically, this is kind of a Feb end release. It is basically our homepage. And if we kind of pop open the homepage, we can see that we have some content. I kind of course, preview it in live preview and kind of go down, see all the different modules we have lined up here. And it's basically saved content. So it's in a version 32. I have some versions that are currently in production. And if I pop back over to releases, you'll see I am in homepage version 32. If I go over to our release preview application, I believe it was on development lined up, and you'll see I have Feb and test, which is basically the name of that release I was just looking at. It is here on the content calendar as well. If I move to our timeline view and I click compare, you will be seeing basically essentially the, I'll click highlight differences here, and you'll see just in green in the header, it's kind of light green. But basically the difference of the content change that I made from the current, what's currently in production, which is current release, to Feb and test, which is here in green. And I kind of prepended those sections with that change. So nice little feature to actually go through and highlight those changes for us as well. And of course, I can view that in any sort of viewport that I choose. So just responsive, desktop, tablet, or mobile as well. So I know we had just a couple of minutes to actually preview this one, so I didn't want to take too much time in the configuration, but really wanted to make sure I kind of showed the outcome here, which is basically the release itself with all the associated entries for this page added to the release and then scheduled to go live. And the scheduling for that actually is, I believe I set it for this Thursday, but I'm just previewing what it will look like basically on that date and time. Cool. So that was a pretty quick overview there. But of course, this is basically what we're looking at between now and Feb 8. And if I go to any individual entry as well, these are all the references for that entry. I do have, if I click compare, basically, this is a way to actually go through and do an entry side-by-side comparison as well. So you can see in green what I was added just before this, and basically have that sort of side-by-side without actually being in that canvas either. So a couple different ways to kind of preview that release for you.
That's really exciting. I know we are getting close to time, so I'll try to move us along. But we had one new exciting feature come out in the last couple of weeks, and that has to do with our developer community. Do you mind walking us through what our new Developer Hub does?
Yeah, absolutely. So Developer Hub for Contentstack is a really exciting place for our developer audience, which is roughly half of our user base, to basically build applications on top of Contentstack. So when I actually do that, I get the ability to create a new app, and I can, of course, choose it as an all org app or scoped to a specific stack. And I'll just call this new test app for Nicole. Hopefully that is new test app, Nicole. And when we go here, I do have the ability to basically see not only all my UI locations that I could use for this application, and I have to configure some of those in the application settings itself. The availability to enable webhooks. So basically then the app itself can be responsive and can actually respond to events and then go through and trigger things downstream as well. We do have an OAuth service. And so basically our customers, our developer customers, are able to basically create apps that their authors don't necessarily have to know keys for or have any sort of like login system to use. They just get to directly use the OAuth service as part of their identity provisioning and single sign-on, as well as basically where the app would be hosted. So we have, of course, the provision to host it with our hosting platform Launch or in a custom URL. And then basically just versioning and the ability to define the application itself. So it's a really nice series of functionality, set of functionality for developers to basically build custom bespoke capabilities directly on top of the Contentstack platform for their authors to do things that are really unique and bespoke and relevant to them. And importantly, using the Venus design system, they can deploy that experience from to anywhere that our UI supports. It could be like a dashboard or a custom field or a sidebar of some sort, and the look and feel will feel very native to the application. It won't feel like a custom developed thing that's just been sort of dropped onto the existing application. So really nice release here of the Developer Hub general availability.
Yeah, we're super excited about it. As we move into our next product, I think we have a couple questions that we can take. One being anything on the 2024 roadmap on building, managing forms.
Building managing forms. Currently, there's no form builder support that is planned. I think we do have some integrations, both in the marketplace on the app side, as well as there might be like an open source project that is basically a sort of a form builder UI deployed as like a dashboard extension or a full page extension, importantly. But it's a really good point, because if you just think conceptually around Contentstack, it is basically a form builder for editors to create structured content and drop it into our database. And so there's nothing stopping anyone from creating a full page application using the developer hub that we just saw, using importantly the fields that we have provided within the Venus design system to represent all the different JSON data types, and then give that to your authors, where you could actually do a sort of a custom form builder. That's basically in the application. Of course, you also have the availability to create something that is deployable to out into the web, and then on submission, it could actually create entries directly in Contentstack, either using Automation Hub to the mapping of those fields and parsing of that data, or some other manner you choose. I mean, we actually do have customers who use Automation Hub to take form submissions and write that into entries today.
Awesome. Thanks for that, John. Let's go ahead and jump into Automation Hub and see what we've worked on, Philip.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we're going to be over by a couple minutes. Hopefully people can stick around. But I did want to just do the quickest, and I'll kind of pivot to an even quicker version of the Automation Hub demo than I was originally going to do. Automation Hub is basically a way to help compose your digital stack, especially in this, what we call like a headless or composable ecosystem. So if you think about, if you're trying to create a quilt, right? You're trying to stitch a quilt. You basically need two things. You need your patches for the quilt, so you need your fabric, and you need your thread. Every sort of headless provider or composable service today, regardless of the use case, whether it's e-com or DAM or search or something, basically is offering the world a patch. They're saying like, hey, here's our fabric. You can utilize it with anything. You can integrate it with anything. We have all the APIs you would need, which is great. What they're all missing, though, is the thread. So Automation Hub for us is basically the thread to help tie all those together. So we're going to look at basically just like the most basic version of what Automation Hub can do here. And I'm just going to go ahead and say test for Nicole. We're not going to go through the lengthier one that I had planned, but basically Automation Hub is a trigger and action based system. It's basically a visual workflow builder. So we have of course, provision of consuming the entire Contentstack webhook library. We also have basically, let me pop back here. The availability of consuming events from the Launch hosting product, having a scheduler, as well as having just like sort of basic HTTP actions. So this is basically you create your own endpoint, essentially. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that really quickly. So it's just a get post endpoint. Just drafted some sort of basic URL for me to read. And if I go ahead and paste it into my bar, I'm just going to go ahead and query Nicole. So name equals Nicole. And that's going to be helpful, because when I come back in here and I test this trigger, you'll see that I've just queried Nicole. So the reason that's actually important is I can save and exit and move on to my actions, which are basically several. I have the ability to create repeat paths. I talked about earlier, I think the question came in earlier around translations. And so repeat paths are really useful, because I can basically have, iterate over the entirety of a payload. So however many items are in an array, or just like define statically the number of times I iterate over that. So in the case of like a translation over n numbers of locales, I can basically utilize this to basically pass my English data to GPT, have it do automatic translation for however many locales I have in my stack. It doesn't really matter. It'll go through and basically post all those individually back into Contentstack, localize the entry, and then let you know that it's been done for all of those. So a really nice way to use loops as well. If I want to use conditionals, it's basically just like a if-else logic. So basically it takes validations on some piece of data from an earlier step and passes it conditionally to sort of like an A or a B path or more than that. But importantly, I want to showcase basically all of the connectors we have today in Automation Hubs. These are basically our native actions. You can, of course, create your own action if you want, using either the code block, the HTTP action, the data store, and any of the other sort of native actions we have today. But of course, you'll see that we have integrations with things like Azure's GPT, ChatGPT directly, Airtable, some of the AWS functions, some project management tooling like Asana and Jira, as well as some of the hosting providers like Netlify, Vercel, our own launch function or launch tool, as well as other things like PubSub, messaging platforms like Microsoft Teams and Slack. So I could basically post a message to those chat and messaging platforms whenever an event happens or whenever something's completed or whenever something's ready for review. So really, I just wanted to kind of showcase some of our actions that are available here in Automation Hub that you can utilize. And really, between the native actions we have here, the ones that are integrated with third-party providers, as well as the utilization of loops and the conditionals, you can essentially replicate any business logic you're looking to map here within Automation Hub. We have yet to actually see a use case that isn't really supported. So it's a really, really great way to just have this sort of like nervous system running behind the scenes of your digital ecosystem, just to ensure everything is kind of right in line where it should be, to ensure that there is not a need to have sort of manual or menial tasks that are kind of error prone from individuals. Everything just kind of like happens and is stitched together nicely in the background for you.
No, it's a super powerful tool. And if you want to learn more, you can go to our website, or you can go to our developer fast track trial and try it there as well. But we hope that this is beneficial for people. I appreciate it, John.
Absolutely.
And for our last product and newest, do we want to jump into Contentstack Launch?
Yeah, let's talk about Launch for just a minute or two. So basically, Launch is our newest product. We launched it. We released Launch last year at ContentCon. It was our second year in a row of a commercial product announcement, and we intend to continue that trend moving forward as well. So it's basically serverless hosting. So if I look into, for example, any particular application. So we do have, the ability of creating environments within that hosting platform as well. So we have preview production environments, as well as the ability to have sort of configurations on integrations with your stack, any collaborators you want to add to that. And of course, you can visualize exactly what's happening in that environment with, custom domains, the connection to a Git repository as well. Again, I'm kind of showing an existing product, existing deployment, not building one from scratch, just in the case of being sensitive to time here. But we do show the deployment logs. We also show, of course, all the individual deployments that happen. Server logs you can have, as well as, of course, you can go ahead and view your site as well. So this is all connected directly into Contentstack. If I were to I'm not going to go through the entire process here, but if I were to kind of show exactly what that looks like, we have the ability to name our environment, give it a name whatever we want that matches ours. I do have basically a connection already to a Git provider. So for this, and I have access to this particular repo, so I can see that I can target the master branch for it. I can basically have its auto select some kind of framework that is defined here, or of course, if I have a custom one that I've written myself or that's not supported in this list, I can select other and have it sort of manually write out my build commands for it. And then basically, I do have the ability to import variables from a stack, and that basically allows me to just map it directly without any sort of configuration required to my Contentstack project, so that my content and my deployment are right in line.
So you can build, automate, and support and launch all with Contentstack Composable DXP.
That's correct.
Is that right? Well, we appreciate you walking through everything today, John. I do have one question for you. I mean, not that you're busy enough, but what was your favorite feature that was released in 2024 or 2023?
I'm always going to have a fondness for whatever our largest commercial release was. And so I think Launch takes the cake for this past year. But, whatever comes down the pipe will probably be my next favorite.
All right. With that Easter egg that you left us, is there anything that you want to share for 2024?
Well, I think, what we're really excited to be working on is additional ways for, teams to kind of tell their story online. And so there's a few missing pieces to the kind of narrative today. And we're really hoping to just make it a little bit easier for teams going forward. So a lot of really exciting stuff on the roadmap and that you'll hear about in the next few months. But definitely for the audience out there, please do buy your ticket to ContentCon. It'll be a good one.
Yes, and you get to hang out with us, so there's nothing better than that. So I think that's all we have today. So this marks the end of our journey, and we appreciate you guys sticking with us for the extra time and hanging out. But again, hopefully you can see us at ContentCon. Check out contentstack.com, and you can try all these cool features through our developer fast track, which is now on our website. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, but we'll see you next time. Thanks, John.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Nicole.